Hello, everyone.
My name is Muftar Abdulrahman, and today I'm here to showcase one of the cool capability of Power Automate. And Power Automate in a low-code developed environment, it can serve as a server end that helps to control and manage data communication from the front end or external web page to the database. It can also serve as a security gateway to validate and authenticate requests before taking the next line of action. You can also use Automate for communication tool in order to trigger notifications such as email for next line of action. So today I'm here to show you how I've successfully integrated a data vast
To a Power Page website.
through a Power Automate workflow. To achieve this, I begin by creating a solution on make.powerapps.com. The idea behind this is to bring or to unify all activities into one place. And here I'm using the account and the contact table.
To record new submissions.
Also, I created a model-driven app as a tool to trace or to track all submissions. And I also created the automate workflow that helps to facilitate HTTP requests as a result of form submission from the website. This is my Power model-driven app where all new submission will drop. This is my workflow that is triggered upon first form submission. So also this is my web page, is the Power Page platform, and this is the Power Page management where I was able to manage my scripting. And whatever I do from the design studio, you can actually see the text from the Power Page management. And here I'm coding this without obliging to connecting any form to data vast table. And the reason that is to allow flexibility so that I will be able to, I will have total control on my page and on my form. So I also have my email to track all changes that has happened. And as we all look into this, we'll be seeing how the emails are dropping, right? So I'll begin this from the form. This is the form I'm using to submit the request. And the form is the idea of this one is just like a normal registration form where user is meant to register for the first time. Now there are cool things that I've implemented on this form. The first of this is the session management, and the purpose of the session management is to control delays in response from user input. So someone who is filling the form and try to abandon, so that person can no longer use that particular session, and the person needs to refresh to create a new session before proceeding. It's just a way of managing session and timeout. Also, I've also implemented a security, which is like an API token, which is generated upon a new session, right? So this is also a way of improving security capability on the form to avoid unauthorized access. Another cool thing I've implemented on this form is the error handling and data input, so that users can put the right data in the right position, right? So I'm going to go through this and let's see how it goes. So let's refresh because we've spent quite amount of time on this page. So I'm going to refresh this, input my record, and let's see what happens. So first, let me trigger my workflow. I'm triggering my workflow for test. Then I'll come to this page. Let's fill in the form.
I'm submitting the form and it says form submission successfully.
And if you go to the automate, you see my automate has successfully run, right? As a result of this form submission. So I'm going to click OK. And if I refresh my Power Automate model-driven app, I'm supposed to see my new record right on the page. The email has dropped and it's showing that this customer have registered his or her account. So let me pick the active account. This is the account I configured to actually track my needs. Okay, now we've seen Jolinda, who was registered just exactly the same time, this time, 28, 26, 10, 2025, exactly 6:56 p.m. So, and this is how the whole flow works. So when a user submit a form, the form triggers the workflow and that record is being created. So now other features that we've implemented, when you try to fill in the form, let's fill in this one randomly and let's refuse to put in the last name. You'll see what it says. So by this, to say you need to fill in the last name, right? So if I try to bypass that approach and try sending it, it's telling me the last name cannot be empty.
The error handling was carefully implemented to control invalid data input.
Same thing. I've also do that to the email. You receive the same thing. And when you try to do that in the right way, because the session has been beyond the stipulated time, this some form will not submit. Your session has been expired. Please refresh the page and try again. Right. So these are cool feature we've implemented in order to enable security and error handling. I will take you to the workflow and explain this workflow to you one after the other. Starts with the first trigger, which is the HTTP request trigger. And what this HTTP request trigger does is it receives the workloads from the front end as a result of the trigger. That is, for example, submitting of the clicking the submit button. So when that button is being clicked, it triggers this workflow, and this workflow is checked to verify that the payloads that is sent to it align with the configuration that is being given on the trigger. And if this matches, then it proceeds to the next. Here I have some variables to undo some of those fields for me and also the token. Then the next thing is the access token check. And what the access token check is it looks into the token, to the request, and checks for the validation code. And in my case, I'm using the CSRF token. It checks the token and verify that this token is valid. I mean, it's coming from the website. And if that is true, then it proceeds to the next. But however, if that token returns false, then it sends an unauthorized response, and it's also trigger an unauthorized email. So when this step is correct, it goes to the next step, which is the data validation check. And what this data validation check is doing is it checks for missing fields or invalid data format. And if any of these triggers to be true, it sends a response of data response 400 bad request, missing or invalid fields, and with an email notification for that invalid validation. And if this is not true, that means there is no any invalid response from this feed, then it goes to the next, which is creating the new record on the account table and also on the contact table, sends an email for confirmation of registration, and also sends a successful response. But however, if this entire flow fails, then we have an email that triggers. It's called failed flow email. And what this email does is checks, and if this entire process fails, then it becomes triggered, and it sends an email that this workflow failed, giving the specified time and the error message. But however, if the flow comes in successful, then the failed flow email is skipped. It's not triggered. So this is the flow of my Power Automate integration to the Power Page from the front end. And with this, I was able to achieve the integration of the Dataverse to the front end Power Pages, and all requests through form submission have been checked, validated, and the authenticity are also checked. And upon successful checks, those records are being recorded on the Dataverse table. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it.